95.7 The Spin Sports Podcast, the Screaming Eagle Sports Podcast. Christian, Nate, the usual suspects here. Today, a very, very, very special guest.
It's probably one of our biggest podcasts really to start off the year, and we're really excited to have our guest come in today, and you can introduce them here, Christian.
It is USI's newest men's head basketball coach, Stan Gouard. Obviously, a lot to unpack in this interview. It's a really good one, and hope you'll get it tuned in and keep watching it here either on YouTube or listening over on SoundCloud. YouTube, 95.7 The Spin Sports. SoundCloud is 95.7 The Spin Sports as well. Here comes Stan Gouard, so we'll just let it go.
I heard some of the things you guys said about about the new job, new position with the players we have coming back. But I appreciate you guys covering basketball and everything you're doing for USI, man.
Yeah, we appreciate you taking the time once again to
anytime. Always available, anytime.
Okay. Nate, do you want to get started?
Yeah, sure. We just have like a set of questions we'd like to ask.
Okay.
Just some personal things maybe not personal, but things we just kind of want to let everyone know about, just questions that we might want to know. But the first one is probably the biggest one that everyone wants to know is, what was really the main reason or your decision to leave the University of Indianapolis and come to USI?
I'm having some trouble. You hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're freezing up a little bit, so I didn't hear the questions. But repeat that, please. I'm having some problems on my end again.
Oh, it could have been on my end too, but really, what was your main decision to leave UIndy and come to USI to coach?
Well, obviously, with my playing career here, USI, of course, has always been a special place in my heart. Since 1992-ish in that ballpark. I don't know if many of you guys know my wife and I are both USI grads. I was at Johnny with me as well. Johnny's girlfriend and boyfriend have a 10-year-old, and but the decision to come back was a no-brainer for me, especially with the resources that we have here in place at USI. At Indy over the past 12 years, I know a lot of people like lateral move. I don't agree with that. With the new facilities, the unbelievable resources that we have here, I think we can contend for a national championship. Great people here in place. And not to say no one was great at Indy, but Dr. Rashawn and I have worked hand in hand here to try to, put our best foot forward possible, to ensure we have everything we need from a basketball standpoint. And not to mention, John Mark Hall has been remarkable throughout my transition. So all those things are in place. On top of all that, I think the most important factor was family. It gets my wife back closer to her family in Carbondale, Illinois, which is about an hour and 20 minutes away. And then I think the other thing was to make sure my 10-year-old was comfortable. We came back here when we played against USI and had a chance to spend a couple of days around here. And I didn't know what was going on with the basketball program, but, when we walked around this campus, I envisioned, my wife envisioned, and my 10-year-old envisioned us coming back here someday. We didn't know it was going to be, 2 months later. And when the opportunity presented itself, it was one of those things where I think it was now or never. And all the boxes, of course, from a coaching standpoint, checked with USI. And the transition, like I said, with the family has been great. And I can't think of a better place to coach at this level. I think the arena, like we talked about a second ago, the Pack Arena, is probably better than 90% of the mid-major programs in the country. So I'm really excited about that.
You talked about being basically a part of USI since 1992. Just wanted to kind of flash back to those days and talk about your recruiting process coming here back then with Coach Pearl.
Oh, the process was a great process. It's one that I want to make sure that I give the guys who I recruit the same type of experience. Coach Pearl was so hands-on throughout the process, but a lot of credit goes to Rick Curtis. He was the lead recruiter on me. He was the assistant coach back then, but he was the lead recruiter. And just some of the conversations we had throughout the process in terms of how they were going to utilize me, how they was going to help me mold out my career from a life standpoint, um, helping me get adjusted, all that kind of stuff. I think the biggest thing in recruiting and what those guys used with me that I use today was just maintaining and creating some type of personal relationship, with recruits. And a lot of times when my assistants go out and find recruits, I'm jumping on those guys pretty quick with phone calls and calling guys as much as we can from a legal standpoint, because I think that was the biggest thing with me. I wanted to go somewhere where I was comfortable with the coaching staff, let alone a great program. And I think we had both of those back then with Coach Pearl and Coach Hurtis, and we have those here now with my staff and I. So there were so many factors, that made me want to come to USI. I'm from a large family. I'm the youngest of 8, and my family knew the coaching staff here very well back then, and both coaches. So, and I think it was a no-brainer from a standpoint where my family was just as comfortable as I was in making the decision to come to USI, and I think it was the best decision I made in my life.
And to keep on the topic of recruiting, this is a really tough time with the pandemic going on and not being able to really go see players play, go out and personally talk in person to these players. Really, what has been recruiting like to you in this odd time? What have you been really doing to change?
It's different, very different for everybody. And the good part about it, it's across the board. It's not just the USI program going through the same thing. So you have to do your homework. We have so many scouting services out there right now, excuse me, that we depend on. There's Synergy Sports Tech that when we do find a potential student athlete, we can go in there and watch some video or some full game footage. With me, when we go out and recruit, we always, put names down of a wish list of guys that we want to get our hands on at some point. So you go back as coaches into your database and look at guys that you either seen play or you know someone that knows the kid or know his AAU coach or his high school coach. So that's how we did it. That's how we've done it so far. As you see, with our current recruits, we got guys, New York, Ohio, Michigan. So, like Jacob Polokovic, of course, he played for me. Jelani Simmons was a guy from when he was in high school. When I was at Indy, we kind of looked at him a little bit, and he ended up going to Youngstown State. So he was a guy that I've seen before a dozen times. And then you look at Elijah Jones, another young man from Chicago who we was recruiting at UIndy, and we knew his AAU coaches very well, knew his high school coaches. My assistant coach Spruance knew those guys very well. Elijah signed at Western Illinois. Coaching change happens, and then he reopened his recruiting, and we jumped on him pretty quick and an easy sell. So you use some of those resources that you have in terms of, from watching players in the past, from previous relationships, like I said, AAU coaches, scouting services, Synergy, Sports Tech, high school coaches. So you got to really do your groundwork. It's a lot going on right now in our world today. But I wouldn't have it any other way. We kind of grinded this thing out to put together a great recruiting class that I'm really proud of.
And you mentioned Coach Spruance. Just kind of want to talk about the staff choices with him coming in, of course, coming with you from UIndy, and then keeping Kevin Gann on board. Just kind of talk about the process as far as your assistants went.
Well, the process was pretty easy for me. I wanted to, first of all, surround myself with guys that are going to make me better. Working with Spruance the past couple years, we bring 2 different things to the table. I want guys on my staff that's going to challenge me a little bit and not just agree to everything I say. And John does that. He's very opinionated, just like me, and I embrace that because I want to have as many different ideas as possible when we try to, go into put together a game plan or even a recruiting game plan. So, John's been with me for 2 years. He went after the UIndy job, and I promised him that if it doesn't work out for me at UIndy, that I would bring him here. So he interviewed for the head coaching position at UIndy. And for some reason, he didn't get the job, and I brought him down here to be on staff with me, and he's been great so far. He's kind of hit the ground running, as you see. A great person to be around. And I didn't want to bring in a lot of new guys. I wanted guys that are very familiar with on my staff, as you said. Once I took the job, here, and I was on staff at Indy, and his personality, the respect factor that he has in the Indianapolis area, all those things went into play. Not to mention, like I said a second ago, he played here at USI. So I think he's already have a lot going for himself in terms of, having both feet in with this program in this university, just like myself. So I told you guys that Kevin, one person had anything bad to say about Kevin, with his personality, his demeanor, and his love for USI in the game of basketball. And then I started interviewing the current student athletes on the roster right now, and all the boxes checked out. And Kevin has been great so far, and really looking forward to the relationship we're going to build over the years on this coaching staff. So really happy with my coaching staff. John can recruit Chicago, Kevin can recruit Indiana. And that's going to be very vital in going forward with our recruiting process, because there's a ton of players in our own state that we got to take care of, and in the state of Illinois as well.
And Kevin Gant is going to be the returning assistant coach with you, but how about some of the returning players? You have Emmanuel Little, who was a key player in the GLVC, along with Josh Price and Mateo Rivera. Really, what are your thoughts on those three specifically coming back?
I'll tell you what, before I took this job, when John Mark and Dr. Rashawn called me about this job, I wanted to went back and studied the roster to make sure that I can win here, because, there's a lot there's a lot at stake here, not just for the players, but for me, because of what I've done as a student athlete. And I feel like we can win right away with those three guys. I tell those guys every day when I talk to them, they're my big three. If you think about back when LeBron James went to the Miami Heat, LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, the big three. And those three guys that you just mentioned are my big three. They bring so much to the table. But at the same time, I put a lot of pressure on those guys to make sure that they lead by example, to ensure that we put our best foot forward. And I'll kind of talk about these guys individually a little bit. It started with Mateo, floor general. I watched these guys in high school a lot, being in the Indianapolis area, and I knew when they came to USI we were going to have problems at Indy because what these guys bring to the table. But Mateo's a floor general, can shoot the heck out of basketball, but really a great basketball leader and has a great basketball mind. So he's going to be a great extension of me on the basketball court. And as we get to know each other, as we've gotten to know each other, I'm really excited about him, leading this program from the point guard standpoint. Emmanuel, the nuts and glue to the basketball teams in terms of the hard hat type of guy. Look at his numbers. I think there's so much more room for growth, and I think we can make him be a double-double guy that he's so close to. But I'm going to push him to hopefully new limits with his basketball, because there's so much more room for growth. And then, of course, Josh Price, those two guys are two different basketball players. But Josh was a nightmare for me the past couple of years in the post, because he can do a lot, And I think, like I told Josh, I'm going to push him more than I push anybody, And he and I had a number of conversations this summer about what can he do to be better, because he wants to be great. I told Josh that, the 12 points and 7 or 8 rebounds, I think he's a 15 and 10 guy, if not a 20 and 10 guy. I think Emmanuel Little is a 20 and 12 guy. Looking at Emmanuel's numbers and Josh's numbers, they getting, 7, 8, 9 rebounds without even chasing rebounds down very much. So I'm going to push these guys every day in practice to make sure that, when these guys graduate, their legacy is left on this program just like mine was, back in the 90s. And I think, we all want to win a national championship. And that's all we've been talking about since day one. when I took the job. And it's easy to say it, but harder to do it. And each and every day, like I told those guys, you got to think, what can I do today to help this team win the national championship? You cannot wait until August or October to do that. It started back when I took the job a couple months ago to prepare ourselves to win the national championship.
You talk about pushing, in particular, Josh Price in practice. Something that Nate and I really talked about whenever this happened was the acquisition, getting Jacob Polokovic to come down here with you from UIndy. How much impact do you think he's going to make on Josh, specifically in practice? Obviously, they battled a lot over the last couple of years.
A huge impact. I'll never forget when we came back here, when we played USI. We wanted to be – our game plan at UIndy rather against USI was to be physical as heck with Josh and Emmanuel, because I just didn't think those guys wanted to be physical. And looking at Jacob, he's a physical guy. And when I announced Jacob to the team and on a Zoom call with the staff, they was like, "Oh, it's not gonna." This is Kevin talking. Kevin, it's not gonna be good because those guys don't like Jacob because they thought he's a dirty player, but he was just physical and following the game plan. And then when I introduced him to the to the players on a Zoom call, it was a brotherhood, and those guys have been great. Even though Jacob's not playing this year, he's going to sit one, play two. I think he's going to help guys like Josh, Tyler Dancy, Josh Price, like I just mentioned, Emmanuel Little, in terms of, what I expect in practice every day. Jacob is one of those type of kids where he's so unselfish. He don't need the basketball to be productive, and he just want to be physical in practice. And I think it's going to really help our team in practice every day with his physicality for Josh and those guys, because he has great footwork in the post, but he's very physical. He's one of those hard hat type of kids that, once those guys graduate, they're going to appreciate what he's done for those guys, for them this year, because of what he's going to bring to the table. He's a great teacher. In practice at Indy last year, he did a great job. He did a great job with our young guys with some of the things with working on angles, rebounding angles, how to be physical without fouling. But he's a great leader. He's going to be really good for those guys this year in practice.
And, the coronavirus happening and whatnot, you're not really, I guess, per se, allowed to be in the facilities to practice like you normally would over the summer or even in the off season. Really, what have you been trying to do to make sure your players are, just kept in shape while you're not really allowed to be in the same room together?
Well, I put it on our leaders. I've made Mateo a captain, Josh and Emmanuel captains of this basketball team. So what I did at UIndy last couple of years, I wanted to make it a player-led basketball team. And not to say I'm not going to be interacting, but I think, in your basketball programs, I heard a coach say this years ago, any player-led basketball team is a great basketball team. So I had a number of conversations with Emmanuel, Mateo, and Josh about being better leaders, not just on the basketball court, but off the court as well. And Mateo has done a great job in checking in with guys and making sure that they're working out. He sent out a tweet a couple weeks ago about, I'm going to be a national champion this year to the team. And we was on a Zoom call with the team a couple weeks ago, and we talked about that. And, and there was a couple guys who skipped a couple of days of working out, and Mateo didn't have no problem, addressing the issue of, hey, man, we want to be national champs. You can't take a day off. And that's what we need with this basketball program. I think the point we're trying to get across to our student athletes means so much more coming from their peers versus me all the time. Now I'm gonna be on them, but when your peers are on you, it's a little bit different, because I think it just means so much more, because the leaders of this basketball team are going out leading by example daily with their workouts, and they don't have a problem jumping on guys for not doing their part as well. So, like I said, I put it on our guys to make sure that they are really working their tails off on the basketball court, and I do some check-ins to make sure and trying to see what guys are doing. But as things are opening up, I'm really excited about at some point getting on the court with our guys to try to see where they are from a basketball standpoint.
That was my next question, actually, was how often are you communicating with the team all together and just different players? Just how's the
I talk with a guy on the phone at least 2 or 3 guys daily. I just kind of randomly call guys depending on what's going on. And we have Sunday is our weekly check-ins. So we have optional Zoom meetings with our team just to check in, address some issues that's going on with the team, making sure guys are doing well, make sure families are well, make sure it's safe. So that's every Sunday. And then, in between Sundays, we check in with guys, make sure they're doing okay. So we're having communication from a coaching standpoint daily. And then we get together as a group, like I said, optional on Sundays, just just to check in and talk about a couple of things. So we communicate quite often. I'm very big on communication. I'm not a big texter. I'm okay with text messaging, but I'm also one of those type of guys that want to see your face, want to hear your voice, and we're doing that quite often.
And just a little brief question, but what do you really expect from this team? I mean, this team was really star-powered, went high into the GLVC tournament, would have been in the regional tournament. Really, what are you expecting from this team on the basketball floor?
Well, I expect hard work, determination, and somewhat perfection. I pride myself on working hard, and I told my guys this at Indy, and I'll tell our guys here, you're going to make mistakes, but I'm one of those type of guys where I want to see mistakes made by playing hard. I think that's going to cover a lot of your mistakes. We were 22-8 here last year, and we were 24-6 at Indy last year. But what we have coming back this year from a 22-8 basketball team, we didn't run everybody staying on this basketball team, and we brought in some great players. I expect us to win a conference championship. I expect us to win a region and a national championship. That's my expectations. I expect us to be model citizens off the basketball court. I expect us to do a great job in the classroom. Now, at Indy the past couple of years, we maintained a 3.0 GPA. And that's my goal here at Southern Indiana, to boost this GPA to a 3.0 or better while doing great on the basketball court. I was at a meeting last week with Dr. Rashawn. He invited me to talk to some of the members of the coronavirus task force. And I stood up and I talked about expectations. And I told those guys this, and I'll share with you as well. I told our guys in our first Zoom meeting that we're going to pride ourselves on 3 things with this basketball team. That's character and to do. I know it's been, things have been done a certain way, been done a certain way. Level. I think we can take it to the next level with opportunities. You can tell in my voice.
Okay, I think we got you back.
Okay.
I was wondering, in particular, with like the scheduling this year. As far as I've seen, it's going to be all conference games this year. But I had a Courier and Press article that you had sat down with Hendricks, and that there was conversation about an exhibition game with Auburn.
Done deal. Yes, that's a done deal already. That's a done deal. We the contract came in about right before I let Hendricks know the contracts came in with Auburn, and I think that's a November 5 or 6, whichever day that Friday is in November. But that's a done deal already. We're really excited. We're thankful to Coach Pearl for hosting us. We played, throughout my career, I've played Coach Pearl 2 times in Tennessee, and we beat them in the country. When I was in Indy, we beat those guys. And then the last time at Auburn, we played them. We lost in overtime, 109 to 114. It was a high-scoring affair, but it was a great basketball game. And looking forward to taking our Screaming Eagles back down to Auburn to play a great basketball team. Coach Pearl has done a remarkable job at Auburn, of course. And I think it'd be a great experience for all. We're going to hopefully take a fan bus, depending on what happens with the coronavirus. Hopefully take a fan bus. Hopefully go down there and play good basketball. But give our student athletes a great experience of going down to Auburn and just taking in the atmosphere there and playing a great basketball team.
And as you mentioned, again, the coronavirus could have an effect on even fans traveling to games. Personally, what do you think could be the long-term effects for this season with the coronavirus going with fans or even your players just going into the locker room with each other?
It's going to be hard. I'm not a member of the CDC to make any calls, but I know that a lot of the junior college teams voted on starting their season in January. So I don't know. It remains to be seen. I'll be happy to have a season. Especially with last year at Indy, we were the number one team in the region, and something was taken away from us that we had no control over. Now I get a chance to redeem myself here at Southern to put us back in the same situation as the number one team in the region. But I don't know what's going to happen. It's so scary right now because of we could be in offices today and be told tomorrow we cannot because it's the world of unknown. But I'll be happy just to have a season to get in the basketball court if that happens. I think a lot of this stuff is going to be predicated on what's going to happen with the summer workouts at the Division Ones already. Of course, the Major League Baseball, the NFL, and then the NBA. They're starting back up here in a couple of weeks. So I'm glued to the TV every day, glued to the news to see what's going to happen. I know I got a buddy that coaches at Grand Canyon down in Phoenix, and they had 11 players test positive for coronavirus. And then most recently, the University of Evansville, just this morning, they had a lot of athletes test positive. So I don't know. We just got to wait to see and pray that everything works out. But I think my main concern, and I'm sure I'm speaking for the entire university, is the well-being of everyone versus playing. We can't be selfish as coaches and players and like we're ready to play. I want everybody to be safe so that we can, enjoy this beautiful country here in the beautiful city of Evansville. So my number one concern is the safety and well-being of everyone versus, being selfish and wanting to play. So we just got to wait and see what happens and let the decision makers make their decisions, and we just go from there.
I'm gonna take a quick spin back to recruiting. I've tallied about 6 players that you have brought onto the onto the team, some of which aren't official yet, so I don't think you can comment on them. But the 4 players the couple players that you are allowed to talk about, minus Jacob Polokovic, can you just kind of give the fans a little bit of info on them and how they play?
Jacob, way beyond basketball. Jacob, when I was at Indy, we was recruiting Jacob, and his dad passed away when he was on an official visit at Ferris State University. His dad passed away while on the visit, so we pumped the brakes a little bit on the recruiting, let him and his parents get through the healing process, and we reconvened. And I remember our first conversation after his dad had passed away. I shared my experience with my dad passing away, and from there we bonded. He's like a son to me that I never had. Our relationship is unbelievable in terms of this player-coach relationship, but he's also, like I said, like a son. And we had some very, very harsh conversations, very tough conversations. We cried together, we laughed together. Uh, but from a basketball, he loves because of his personality, because of how hard he works. His mom, Missy Polakovic, is remarkable. She's a winner, and he has a sister that he just embraces and loves so much. But this young man is the when you say student first, athlete second, that's Jacob Polakovic. The culture that we want to build here with character academics basketball, that's Jacob Polakovic. And he just loves playing basketball, comes from a great basketball program in Grand Rapids, Michigan. But again, he's gonna be a fan favorite because of how hard he works, and he just want to be loved. He want to be liked, he wants to be a great basketball player, and he's going to do anything possible to do that. You know, he'll run through a brick wall for you, but he's going to be one of those guys that you guys are going to love so much because of his personality, the tangibles he has on the basketball court. So really excited about Jacob in a couple of years playing here.
Okay, we've only got 8 minutes left in the Zoom call because we had to reschedule it. I did want to ask, I guess it's probably the final question. With Coach Watson, of course, retiring, and then that opened the hiring process for you. Have you communicated with Coach Watson, and are you guys speaking, or how's that?
Yeah, absolutely. Rodney and I are friends. I was telling someone yesterday, I've been knowing Rodney for 24 years when he was at SIU Carbondale. Rodney, I had a good friend that played at SIU Carbondale. His name was Troy Hudson, and Rodney was the assistant coach there. And Troy, I used to go watch Troy practice all the time when Rodney coached him. So the relationship goes way back there. And then Rodney recruited one of my nephews when Rodney was at Carbondale. My nephew ended up going to Loyola Chicago. So, you know, with my wife being, you know, from Carbondale, our relationship started long before he took the job at USI. In fact, when Rodney was hired, I was one of the guys who called John Mark to endorse Rodney taking over this job because I thought he'd be a great fit, and he was. So no Watson, I'm talking too fast, I'm sorry. But I know Coach Watson very well, long before his time here at USI back in the days from back when he coached at SIU Carbondale.
Nate, do you have anything?
I don't really think I have anything, honestly. I mean, I think we've covered everything we've really wanted to cover. And
okay. Hey, well, listen, guys, I appreciate you guys having me on the show, man. I would love to come back anytime, man.
We appreciate it.
Give me a call. I'm gonna shoot you guys my my personal cell phone as well. You know, if you guys want to call and talk anytime, man, I would love to be on the show, man. I love what you guys are doing for this university and this program, and really looking forward to getting to know you guys, man. Okay.
Thank you a lot.
Really appreciate you.
Really appreciate it.
Anytime.
Okay, well, that will wrap up our time with Stan Gouard. A very, very good interview, if I do say so myself.
I may have stuttered just a little bit and panicked, but it's okay. It's okay.
Really, though, I mean, a lot to unpack from that interview. He talked really well about Emmanuel, Josh Mateo, his assistant coaches. The Auburn exhibition is indeed happening, so that's pretty big news. Essentially said it was national championship or bust this year for the Scream Eagles as well.
Absolutely, and this is the team to do it. This is a strong front. They got good backcourt. I mean, really, this team is they can be a national championship. They can be national champions without a doubt, and this is the team to do it. You have the big three, like Coach Gouard just mentioned, like you and I both like to call them the big three, but also all these recruits coming in. Yeah, I mean, we just talked about that yesterday. That's kind of weird, but all these recruits coming in, all the power that's coming back for USI, only losing 3 key players last year. This is going to be a strong team. This is a high-power team. I do not think that any GLVC team can beat this USI team if they perform the way they're supposed to as well.
And it does appear that it will be just a GLVC schedule as far as what Coach Gouard said in the interview. And before we even sat down with Coach Gouard, Nate and I were twiddling our thumbs for a little bit, and we went over and checked out a couple of the other teams' websites, mostly just to look at rosters. But we clicked on the University of Missouri St. Louis on their roster, and then we were like, well, let's look at their schedule real quick. And they had their GLVC schedule for the season out. USI and UMSL will meet in the final game of the year at Scream Eagles Arena on, I believe it was February 27th was the date.
February 27th.
And it appears USI will open the season on November 6th on a Friday night down in Alabama against Auburn in an exhibition game. And then the following week, I believe, is when they will start off the GLVC season on November 13th, if I read an email that I received correctly.
Yeah, this is going to be a great season. Really, the gears are starting to shift a little bit more. At the beginning of all this pandemic, we didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know if we would even have a season at this point. but things are starting to work into our favor. Looks like we will have a season if everything stays calm and stuff. But for us and the fans, it's still kind of at a standstill. But for right now, we got a season, and it looks like it's going to start shifting into gears soon.
Absolutely. And another thing I really want to highlight is how kind Coach Gouard was throughout the whole process. It was pretty tough to get on here at the very beginning. A lot of people, a couple of us had connection issues. Finally, we got it going. He was very understanding about it all. And then, of course, towards the end of the interview, was very kind, some really kind words, told us he'd listened to our podcast before. So really, I'm thrilled with how it went, and a big shout out to Coach Gouard. We can't thank you enough. And hopefully we'll get him back on at some point in the near future, and a couple of the other coaches in the coming weeks as well.
Absolutely. We're going to try and get this starting as maybe a weekly thing every other week, depending on our availability. But once we get back to campus, starting the semester, we'll throttle. We'll hit it. We'll go, pedal to the metal. We'll start going. But again, thank you, Coach Gouard. Once again, that was a fantastic interview, made for a great.
Yeah, absolutely. And one other thing that I do want to highlight is whenever the semester does start, you guys will notice that Nate and I will not be on Zoom anymore. We will be in our apartment, and I believe that's where we're going to record the podcast from, probably from our living room couch, with the cameras lent out to us that we'll try to get from Access USI across the hall. And because right now, can't really have very many people at the Spin, so it's going to be a little bit different. Only 2 people currently allowed at 95.7 The Spin, me being one of them, which is, you can see the Spin studio in the background. Ron Burgundy's over there. But, yeah, it's odd times, as Coach Gouard said, and hopefully things will shift back to normalcy in the coming weeks, and we can really get the ball rolling on sports, because I know that's going to take a lot of people's mind off of everything.
And a big shout out to John Morris, our boss, the general manager at the station, for really getting things started. I mean, you being in the station is a big step up from, anything, because we weren't allowed to set foot on campus for such a long time. And to being able to get things rolling and started, you really have to thank John Morris for getting things set up and taking interest for something like this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. A big shout out to everybody, especially all the staff at USI. Ronald Rochon, President Ronald Rochon, has done an incredible job. I mean, everything has gone to plan out here. You do have to wear a mask unless you're alone in a room, but really that's a small price to pay to be able to come back and get back to work. So once again, a big shout out to Stan Gouard, a big shout out to everybody at USI. And I genuinely believe, especially after that interview, I already said it before, but that was the best possible hire for USI athletics.
Without a doubt. I couldn't agree with you more.
And with that, I think we're going to wrap this up. This has been the Screaming Eagle Sports Podcast with, of course, our special guest, Stan Gouard. I'm Christian.
I'm Nathaniel.
And we're the podcasters. We'll catch you next time.